What if I told you that the mind that overthinks is often the same mind that suffers in silence? That deep reasoning, when left unchecked, can become a silent, self-built prison. Overthinking is like being trapped in a maze without an exit. You walk, retrace your steps, analyze every wall, but in the end, you're still stuck in the same place. Maybe you've felt it, lying in bed trying to sleep, but your mind keeps bringing everything back. Every conversation, every decision, every what if. The world might call it a brilliant mind. But what if it's just anxiety wearing a clever disguise? Is overthinking a sign of intelligence or just fear in disguise? A University of Michigan study found that people who ruminate for long periods have higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. The mind doesn't rest, and neither does the body. And yet, history's greatest minds were obsessive thinkers. They saw patterns no one else could see. They built theories from doubts others wouldn't dare ask. So where is the line between genius and suffering? That's what we're here to explore. Not with guesses, but with science, philosophy, and deep reflection on human nature. Through this video, we'll dive into the paradoxes of overthinking and try to understand why a sharp mind can sometimes be the hardest place to live. But first, we need to understand what overthinking actually is. Overthinking isn't the same as deep thinking. The issue isn't how much you think, it's what you do with it. When thinking turns into looping, that's when the trouble starts. Overthinking means replaying the same scenario over and over without reaching a solution. It's like running mental laps around a problem, getting nowhere. It shows up in small ways, like when you're trying to send a simple text, and 5 minutes later, you're still rewriting the first line. Sound familiar? Psychologist Susan Nolan Hoeksema from Yale University was one of the first to study this. She showed that rumination is strongly linked to anxiety and depression. The mind starts out trying to solve something, but ends up spinning in place. The thoughts don't evolve, they repeat, like a scratched record, playing the same note until it wears you down. What's tricky is that it feels productive, it feels rational, but really it's just mental noise dressed up as reflection. And over time, that noise becomes exhausting. Quietly, it starts to wear you out. But this exhaustion isn't just mental, it begins to echo through your entire body. Overthinking doesn't just drain your energy, it physically wears down your brain. Literally, it's like running a motor non-stop with no destination. Research from Harvard Medical School shows that people with anxiety tend to overactivate the prefrontal cortex, the brain region linked to decision-making and planning. That means when you overthink, your brain is working overtime. But instead of finding answers, it often just creates more stress and doubt. Your body feels it too. Your heart races. Sleep disappears. Even when you rest, you wake up tired, because your mind never stopped working. It's like trying to swim in quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. What begins as logic ends in emotional burnout. Overthinking starts with good intentions. Solve a problem, prepare for the worst, protect yourself, but eventually it becomes a spiral you can't climb out of. And here's the real danger. This spiral changes how you see the world. It colors your perception, makes small problems feel massive, and big problems feel unsolvable. But here's the twist. This same mind that spirals is also capable of amazing things. And that's what we need to look at next. The mind that overthinks is often the most analytical one, the kind that sees patterns others miss, that predicts outcomes, that imagines every possible path before taking a single step. It's the same kind of mind that led Einstein to wonder what it would be like to ride a beam of light, and from that thought, reshape science forever. Or Pascal, who once said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Deep thinkers dive into the invisible. They question everything. Nothing goes unnoticed. But this depth comes at a price. Nietzsche warned, if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. And maybe that's what happens when you think too much. You start falling into your own depth. The analytical mind is a gift when guided with clarity, but it can also become a mental trap, where every option becomes a problem and every decision turns into a crisis. The line between brilliance and burnout is razor thin, because the more clearly you see the world, the more contradictions you'll notice. And logic alone can't always handle that. And this is where thought starts to shift, from structure to chaos. Overthinking is often a desperate attempt to control the future. The analytical mind believes that if it can calculate every outcome, it can avoid pain, failure, or regret. But life doesn't follow equations. It's unpredictable. And the more we try to control everything, the more chaotic we become inside. Stoic philosophy said it simply, some things are within our control, others are not. That line is what separates peace from frustration. When we overthink, we forget that. We try to control the uncontrollable, other people's opinions, time, fate, and it slowly tears us apart. According to the American Psychological Association, obsessing over planning or predicting increases the risk of chronic stress and a feeling of helplessness. It's like using pure logic to navigate a stormy sea. The compass might work, but the ocean doesn't care. Sometimes overthinking isn't clarity, it's fear pretending to be reason. It's a survival instinct dressed in spreadsheets. And in trying to outthink uncertainty, we end up drowning in it, which leads us to something even more complex. What if the real issue isn't overthinking, but being too aware? We're the only species that thinks about its own thinking, that wonders why we feel, why we suffer, why we even exist at all. This is the paradox of consciousness. It helps us understand the world, but it also makes us carry the weight of simply being aware. Sartre said, man is condemned to be free, because once we know we have the power to choose, we also carry the fear of choosing wrong. That fear fuels overthinking. The conscious mind wants meaning, but the more it searches, the more questions it finds. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman described two systems in the brain. System 1, fast and intuitive. System 2, slow and analytical. Overthinking is what happens when System 2 gets stuck, when analysis becomes paralysis. Self-awareness should be light, but sometimes it becomes a distorted mirror. Every emotion, every memory, every fear comes back as thought. And we can't just stop thinking, because in many ways we are thought. But when those thoughts become noise, we disconnect from the present. That's when too much clarity becomes pain, when intelligence without balance starts pulling us into the void. And that void doesn't always look like silence. Sometimes it's full of noise. Overthinking might look like genius, and in many ways it is. Highly intelligent minds tend to be more sensitive, more analytical, more tuned in to details. But that same brilliance often comes with an invisible cost. A study in the Journal of Research in Personality found that people with higher IQs are more likely to experience anxiety disorders. The more scenarios you can imagine, the more fears you can create. It's like building too many possible futures and getting lost between them. Logical intelligence without emotional balance becomes an engine without brakes. You understand everything, but you can't turn it off. And that takes a toll. Headaches, insomnia, muscle tension. What begins in the mind slowly spreads through the body. It's a high price to pay for seeing beyond the surface, because seeing more also means carrying more. And that brings us full circle, back to the question we asked at the start. Is overthinking a sign of intelligence or anxiety? Maybe now we're ready to answer that. Overthinking can be both. It can be the spark of a brilliant mind or the silent scream of a mind trying to stay in control. The difference lies in the impact. Does your thinking move you forward or hold you back? If it drives you to create, to understand, to grow, it's intelligence in motion. But if it drains you, paralyzes you, steals your peace, it's anxiety disguised as logic. As Viktor Frankl once said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our power to choose what we do with our thoughts. The goal was never to think less. It's to think with awareness. When your thoughts spiral out of control, the answer isn't to fight them, but to guide them. Practices like meditation, journaling, and mindfulness help the mind slow down and breathe. It's not about turning your brain off. It's about learning to hear the silence between your thoughts. Your mind can be your greatest ally or your deepest prison. And in the end, that choice is yours. So tell me, do you overthink? And has it helped you or held you back? Share your experience in the comments below.